Good evening, everybody. You'll notice that our format looks a little bit different. Howie is in transit, so the boss and I are running the show tonight. Whatever, you know what it is. So yeah, thank y'all for being here. Happy to see everyone. Yeah. So what we got?
Well, we've got a couple of really good things going on this week in the campaign. My name is Andrea Merida. I am the campaign manager. I am not Howie Hawkins, and but we are here because, as Angela said, that we're Howie's in transit. We do have some home runs that we want to talk about this week, though. The convention is going to be this coming Saturday. So by the time you see Howie and Angela next week, all goes well, and I'm pretty sure that it will. They will be the official nominees of the Green Party for president and vice president. So that's going to be really exciting, and of course, the campaign is very busy trying to prepare for that. We have gotten word that we actually have almost all of the states qualified for matching funds. And the only states that are outstanding now are Minnesota and Virginia. And both of those states are less than $400. And I think it's really only around $300 left for each one of those states. And so if you're in Minnesota, if you're in Virginia, any amount of donation that you can contribute today, just go to, you look at the top of the screen there, make a donation, go to howiehawkins.us. Let's hit this home run before we walk into convention on Saturday. The other thing is that the ballot access efforts are really going forward pretty well. We understand that Maryland has gotten all of their signatures. They're just trying to collect a little bit more to go over the bump and make sure, in case somebody's signature is not legible, or, well, it's electronic, but for whatever reason, you always, when you're collecting the petition signatures, you always go for a little bit more. But they've reached their basic threshold. And just trying to think here real quick, Arkansas is very, very close to getting their threshold. Alaska is about finished, and so we'll have the Alaska Green Party on the ballot this November. So there are a few things going on. We're kind of cleaning up, wrapping up things, and we're going to go into the convention looking really, really good. And I'm excited to support Angela in this way. What do you think about that, Angela?
I am beyond excited. I think that this year is, those of you that follow me on Twitter, you've seen what I said today. This year is unprecedented. And so I think that what we are capable of this year is going to be bigger than anything anybody has been expecting. And so I'm really, really excited about that. Really, really honored. My team is invincible. I'm just gonna say it. So because it needs to be said, and there's no use in trying to, minimize it. This team is invincible. And so to be part of a team with folks who are dedicated and who are supporting the most amazing vision is going to be it's a big thing. It's very humbling.
Yeah, I mean, and we really have to give it up for the thousands and thousands of donors that have really helped us get to this point. There are thousands and thousands of people who have confidence in you, have confidence in Howie, and they're real excited about, the only progressive set of candidates that are going to be advocating for Medicare for all, for an eco-socialist Green New Deal, the full strength Green New Deal, like Howie likes to say, and some other things as well, economic Bill of Rights. And so there's a lot of potential there. So we owe a lot of thanks to the people who have been, buying T-shirts and mugs, and people who have been donating, and everybody that's volunteered. This actually is an operation that, we're using all of the normal campaign technology and things like that. We've got hundreds of people, hundreds of volunteers really trying to make it happen. And so they're all doing a great job. And so I'm really excited. I'm really excited about the team that we have. They work so hard, and they're very disciplined and very methodical. And so we're here as a result. So it's great. Um, how about we answer a couple of questions?
I'm ready.
Let me just kind of scroll through here. You all are going to have to bear with me because usually I'm the one that's feeding the questions. Here's a good one. I'll read it for you, Angela, and let's hear what you have to say. And if I need to, I'll supplement. Um, Tioko Ryder is asking, will you be able to make the stage at a debate?
We are doing our level best. I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize how much of an uphill battle it is for third parties to get into the room. And so we are reaching out to media. We are, making connections where we can, and just letting people know that this campaign is not cosmetic. It's not, okay, we're just, doing this for show. We're raising issues. I want to be very clear with everybody out here. We came to win. That is the intention. We came to win. And in this year of all years, I believe with my whole soul that it's possible. And so getting on the debate stage, Howie loves to say, it's not about me not being willing to debate Trump or Biden. Are they willing to debate me? And we all know Pence wouldn't last 2 minutes in the ring with me. We both know that. So, and I think they know that too. And so we're going to do our very best to get on the debate stage as much as we can.
Yeah, we do have to point out that the debates are not this public thing that's run by the Federal Elections Commission or anything in the government. It's the Commission on Presidential Debates, and as Howie always points out, it sounds like a nonprofit, but it really isn't. It's a private corporation that's really funded by the DNC and the NRC, National Republican Committee. I think that's what it is. And they get between themselves and they decide who's going to be on the debate stage. They've set the arbitrary limit of 15% approval in polls, in national polls. What's tricky about the polls is that typically the sample size of the people that they call is maybe about 1,500 people. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's a little bit less. And some of you will recall that one of the issues with polling in past years has been that typically they only call people like have a landline, and I don't have a landline anymore, so they're not going to.
No.
Yeah, Angela, I don't think they're going to call you. So, so then what has to happen in order for people to even respond that they know about this campaign is for us to get in front of them via the media and that sort of thing, and that's something that we're working really hard. I would say that our media and communications team is probably the most top-heavy department in the campaign because we're taking that media seriously. Obviously social media is a big deal. Many of you are here because you're watching via social media, but we cannot ignore the mainstream media, and we can't ignore the fact that most people get their information from the mainstream media. So getting in those polls to be able to qualify for that 50% in polling, to be able to qualify for the congressional debates, or excuse me, the Commission on Presidential Debates, is super important because so we got to kind of ease into it that way. So I mean, does it help for people to email and send letters to the Commission on Presidential Debates? Sure. The thing is that the Green Party has been involved in lawsuits against the Commission on Presidential Debates several times. In fact, there was a lawsuit that completed during, a couple of years ago. And we've done it jointly with the Libertarians and some other parties. And the courts keep ruling that the Commission on Presidential Debates is a private organization. And so they get to set their own rules. So, that's kind of the way it is, but we're just going to keep on pushing. So
I think Howie always mentions reaching out to the League of Women Voters.
Mm-hmm.
Because at some point this was in their purview, and it ended up getting privatized. So I'm thinking, if people want to raise the issue with the League of Women Voters, we will definitely be doing that too.
Right. Yeah, and Howie is calling for us to remind the League of Women Voters of their impartial, nonpartisan role in conducting debates. And so stay tuned because we will have a petition on the website soon asking the League of Women Voters around the country, the different chapters around the country, to step up and to regain that, take that brass ring back. And, they have done incredible service to, electoral politics in the United States for decades. And there's no reason for them to stop doing that now. So how about another question, Angela?
Yes.
Okay, I'll read them for you. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. So Gonzalo Pizarro says, with millions of Americans behind in rent payments due to the pandemic, how would your administration respond to alleviate those affected by this crisis?
Well, we've talked about in our primary making sure that there would be a moratorium on rent, on utility payments, and on foreclosures. And going a little bit further, we would make sure that the government is paying for can step in and pay for rent so that, landlords are not, it creates a domino effect. I don't know. I posted something on Twitter recently about, that domino effect. So, it's not as simple as saying, oh, well, just cancel rent. No, there's an effect on the economy that happens when, folks who have properties can't make their payments. It destabilizes local economies, which doesn't help anybody. And so it would be the duty of our administration to step in and pay those rents so that we can have a moratorium for the people who are unable to pay, but we're not kicking the can down the road so that when the moratoriums are ending, as we're seeing, now all of a sudden you've got this giant lump payment on your back. Those landlords would be paid.
Yeah, Howie's and your COVID plan that you two have been advocating for, recognizes that the Trump bucks that everybody just got of $1,200 is clearly not enough. And, you two have been advocating for at least $2,500 a month through the duration of this pandemic, plus $500 for each child. Nationwide rent freezes, those kinds of things like this. One of the beautiful things about you and Howie being workers is that you've very much been in the same position as, some of our viewers and some of the people who are really concerned about this issue. When there's a job instability, when there's a paycheck instability, it's like the lending level, when you go to get a mortgage, they don't want you to pay more than 30% of your income in housing, right? And I mean, we all know that that's not really, it's actually a lot more than that, what we actually pay. And so, even $2,000 a month, depending on where you live, here in Denver, $2,000 a month is not a whole lot of apartment, but it's something, right? And it's a lot more realistic than what, what's been proposed so far. What do you think?
And like I'm seeing folks in the comments saying, I didn't get a stimulus, neither have I. And also being somebody who works, every day. I still drive a truck. Y'all hear that a lot. We were off today, as a matter of fact, because it is pouring buckets outside, and chances are we're going to be off tomorrow. I don't get paid for that. So, yeah, this is not some abstract concept for me. It is, it's a very real thing.
Yeah. Well, we just have to keep pushing, and it's really, really important that that we do have the potential to have workers in the White House through this campaign, because it's time to have a legitimate experience, a legitimate life experience about what we're really dealing with. So I think that's good. There's a question here about your working experience, and you just answered that. You're a, let me put that up, and then Ashley Reich. What is your working experience, Angela?
I have been a commercial driver for next year. It will be 20 years. That is what I'm doing. And I've had work periodically. I step away from the driving, and I have been the community campaigns coordinator for a nonprofit. I have done community activism work. I've done work around the privatization of public schools, things like that. but my primary love is driving.
That's cool. So, like, were you ever a bus driver, like a school bus driver?
I drove school buses for 12 years. I was a Greyhound driver for 2 years, drove for Milwaukee County Transit for 4 years, and now I am on a dump truck, and I love it.
That's awesome. Well, here's a good question. Alex Kraus wants to know, what is y'all's advice for advocating for socialism within your state Green Party? See you guys at the convention. I'm a Howie delegate. Yay,
Hey.
Alex.
Well, I think the best way to advocate for socialism, when I'm talking to people who are not necessarily familiar with socialism, which I was doing at the barbershop this morning, as a matter of fact, or are a little bit ambivalent about it, I talk about issues and, the things that socialism has been good for. If we are talking about Medicare for all, which is something that you're seeing that people across the country, of whatever, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different ethnicities, we seem to come together on this issue. That's socialist. When you're talking about making your national health service community controlled, nationalized, and something that the public controls, those things are socialist. And so when I'm talking about people, or talking to people who may not necessarily understand or may feel like they're a little hostile, you just have to understand that folks in this country have been red baited for so long that the minute they hear socialist, the minute they hear communist, they get their backs up. And so when you start talking about issues, people tend to relax and they're like, oh, okay, I can ride with that. And so just understand where people's, reluctance is coming from, and also, talk about the issues.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people sort of mischaracterize about socialism is, oh, well, it's these government programs and it's Medicare for all and things like that. And I also serve as a state Green Party co-chair as well, and this is something that comes up a lot. And I think it is important to really talk about those issues, but I also think that it's really important to stress that socialism is democracy. And, the decisions that you all make in many of your state Green parties, you're still using like a consensus decision-making model. That's very, very akin to what happens under socialism, and we tend to, in this country, want to look at democracy as just something that you do when you pull the voting lever, right? But that's not it. It's really who has the power and who can make decisions over the disposition of whatever that situation is. And so your state and local Green parties are actually a really, really good place to practice socialism in terms of those democratic decision-making events, right? So it is better to talk about issues. It's also better to talk about, at first, an anti-capitalist stance, because you have to remember too that not everyone in the Green Party identifies as a socialist. They do resonate with the ideas of shared resources, of democracy, of social justice and things like that. And coincidentally, a lot of those things are part of the 10 key values of the Green Party. What we did in Colorado, for example, is that we started out as declaring ourselves an anti-capitalist party, right? So we haven't said that we're explicitly a socialist state party, but that seems to sit okay with most people. And so, I would recommend that, you start a discussion around anti-capitalism as you start to move into that. And political education is so important. There's a really great book out there, very short, and it's from Haymarket that we use a lot in Colorado, and it's called Socialism Seriously by Danny Catch. And it's literally only 140 pages long. It's really funny, eases people into the conversation about what socialism is. So that's good. We have to have political education programs to go along with it. So, alrighty, here's another one. Here's our friend Yadira. What advice for new Greens do you have to get more involved in the Green Party? What can we do on the ground to help the Hawkins Walker campaign?
Hola, Yadira. Hey, mama. Well, that's a good question. New Greens. I think just getting involved, what does your party local need? And as far as being on the ground to help our campaign, we've got downloadable lit. I know I've got my claws on some that I'm able to, hand out. I took it to the barber shop today. And just spreading the word. If you want to plug in, we can put our volunteer coordinator in the chat so you can, hit them up. But just talk about people, because I think the thing that we're up against more than anything else, which my aunt yelled at me about, nobody knows about y'all, because we're not on mainstream media for obvious reasons. And so the thing that is most meaningful to me personally is, folks from Black, Indigenous, and Brown communities, and where we're having these discussions. And so I'm thinking, just spread the word as much as you can. Spread things on social media. Let people know how you feel. Let people know why you support us. Because a lot of people, there's a lot in that platform. And so what in our platform speaks to you personally? Lift that up and let people know, I think the most important thing is that they know they have a choice. Because what I hear a lot is folks' frustration with being confined to the duopoly, which we in 2020, we should be doing better than this. And so I think it's just a matter of just getting the word out, Mama, and let people know that we're here, that, what you love about this campaign, what you love about this platform, what encourages you, inspires you. And as far as being a green, what does how can you plug in with your party? Ask them, what do y'all need? What are we moving? Are there caucuses you can join? I know I'm a member of the Lavender Greens, and I've also put in to be a member of the Black Caucus. So, get involved in any way that, you're comfortable. Everybody ain't good with being out front, but you'd be surprised how much of your talents that you didn't think about you having that come, when you join. So just offer, let them know, what do you need? I'm here, and how can I plug in?
Yeah, and I would say, as far as helping to get the word out about the campaign, the advantage that, some of the bigger, Democrat campaigns, Bernie's campaign, that sort of thing, is that they were able to do most of their campaigning before things shut down for the pandemic. And so we have to figure out a different way. This is not a campaign that will say, oh, woe is me, we can't knock on doors. So, I know a lot of people are reluctant to get on the phone and do phone banking, but honestly, that's like, phone banking is the new black. It's phone banking is the new door knocking 2020. It's the new little black dress. So, we have an operation where we're doing text banking, phone banking, and we do some other things as well. And I realize that people are reluctant to get on the phone. I personally, being an old campaigner myself, I actually find phone banking to be a lot easier than door knocking. For one, you're not out in the summertime in the heat, but there's that little veneer between you and the phone line, and so you don't have to really, if you're a little awkward with folks, that might actually be a good way to do it. I would really encourage people to go ahead and sign up, not just for text banking, but for phone banking as well. And you can sign up to volunteer at howiehawkins.us, and you look under the organize tab, and there will be a sign up form for a volunteer sign up. So so many of you have really gone the extra mile in green campaigns before. Some of you have gone the extra mile for Bernie Sanders. We're asking you to go the extra mile as well for Howie and for Angela. And so, help us by getting on the phone. At some point when your area starts opening up a little bit, then we'll start looking at tabling. We will start looking at a little door knocking, but definitely also share things on social media. You'll see online that there'll be publications that'll talk about the only candidates running, and they'll completely forget that there's a Green Party as well. Get on there and get in the comments. Don't feed the trolls, but get on the comments and share a link and let people know about this campaign. So there's all these kind of like underground, grassroots, DIY kinds of ways that you can help the campaign by doing that, in addition to the normal campaign operations. And, a lot of people are doing that already. They're stepping up. It's great. We need you and we love you and we support what you're doing. So keep it up. Let's see. Here's a good one. How can we as individuals best contribute to establishing Green Party legitimacy? What do you think, Angela?
I'm thinking, well, my first question, hey, Jake, are you a member of a Green Party local anywhere? And, where do we, and I'm thinking about myself too here in South Carolina, because I saw a question in the chat about greens in the South. How do we get greens in the South? Well, we're here. And so I think that it's important that we talk to one another and that we get into, because your question is establishing Green Party legitimacy, tell people what we're about. I think that with all of the actions that have been happening on the ground and all of the movement that has been going on, it's an opportunity because our people are out there. And so, when people see you and, there's things that you're doing, they'll ask you who you are and just explain, I'm a member of the Green Party. This is what we're about, and have conversations with people. I think our legitimacy comes from building relationships with people in communities. We're not the type to come in and, take over an action or tell folks how to do, what they're doing in their home. We're here to help and to coordinate with local efforts and things like that. So I think those things help establish us as a party of people who are involved in their communities, who genuinely care about the people who are already doing the work and are respectful of that. And also it draws people to us. Andrea, I think you have more.
When people talk about legitimacy of the Green Party, I think that the word is also related to viability. And we have to remember that because we are a grassroots party, because we're a party of the working class, we cannot use the measurement. We can't use the yardstick that comes from corporatists, right? And so when they talk about viability, what is it that they're really saying? Or even legitimacy, what are they actually saying? And I believe that what they're saying is how much money from corporations can you raise? Well, we're not going to do that, so that's not an appropriate measurement for us. So the first thing I would say is, stop using somebody else's yardstick. That the shoe that doesn't fit, so don't wear it, right? But then I would say, Howie talks a lot about organizing and wanting to build a Green Party, and Howie or Angela just alluded to the fact that, we want to organize via building relationships. And so what we want to be able to do to show that we're effective, and I want to, legitimate, viable, those are not words that are correct in this context. Effective is a better word in this context. And what that means is, does your local or state party, do they have an email list? Are they regularly getting voter lists from the state where that's possible, or purchasing it? Because in a lot of states, they, the Secretary of State or the Board of Elections will give you every year or every 2 years a free list of, of the registered voters, where you have a registered voter that you can use. And so do you have a database? Do you have a website? Is somebody updating the website? Is your social media pages updated? What do you know about local issues? What is your state or local Green Party's opinion on local events that are happening? And how do people get to read what your opinion is? So that's actually a really, really good way to take care of those communications and that outward facing kind of communications to kind of show that you're being effective. And I think that people really want to see, especially folks who consider themselves to be progressive, they really want to see that that your local and state Green Party are engaged in what's going on in the local issues that's important to them. And so if you're not expressing any kind of opinion whatsoever, you're not giving anybody anything to latch onto. So yeah, I mean, if you have a local meeting where you only get 5 people that show up on a regular basis, that's okay. Have somebody, do a live stream. You can do Facebook Lives really, really easily if you don't have good writers. Have somebody pull together a blog report or a blog post. A lot of times there's things going on in your city council or in your state legislature that there might be a bill going through or an ordinance that's about to be passed that is totally against green values. Well, say something about it. And ask your members to share things around, communicate with your members. And what happens a lot of times in our state and local parties is that we're not communicating with our members. We have a primary once every couple of years or every 4 years, depending on the office. And that's the only time that we talk to them. And, I would advocate for, communicating on a more regular basis. So.
And I think that's a really good point, Andrea, is that people can not only see us and they cannot only see our party when someone is trying to be elected. We have to have a presence in our communities, a consistent presence, a year-round presence. And so it's going to be really interesting, for me here in South Carolina to get to know folks, because I am not a native. I'm from Wisconsin. And so, figuring out how to move with folks here is going to be something that I have to do as well.
So, Angela, there's a few comments here that are actually, inappropriate, I would say. Some folks that are, making some allegations here. And if you don't mind, I would just like to address kind of the general tenor of it. And if you want to jump in, you can too.
Please, boss.
I get it that some people have advocated for and have supported other candidates other than Howie and Angela. That's fine. That's your right to do. You don't have to, love everything that Howie and Angela say. But let's be clear. Having an effective campaign and having the results that show that this is an effective campaign within the Green Party is not rigging. I think that on the final analysis, we just talked about phone banking. We just talked about our lit. We just talked about our fundraising. We talked about all these matching funds, ballot access. We talked about all of these things that are normal for an effective green campaign. And these are things that actually Jill Stein herself in her last 2 campaigns accomplished. And so, before you talk about rigging or corruption or any of that kind of stuff, there are metrics that you can use to see really what the situation is. And a campaign that has, at this point, close to 7,000 donors, a campaign that has raised about $200,000, and the number is greater than that, but you'll see when we file our next FEC report. A campaign that's doing these things, and winning primary votes, especially where they're state-run primaries, where it's just not possible for us to talk to every single Green that's going to vote in a primary. That means that the campaign was effective, and I think if you look at the metrics, this campaign outpaced any other campaign, and I'm very proud of that. We have a very strong team. We have a strong team that understands the party too. Our team is not new to the party. So there are relationships. Howie is a co-founder of this party. He has an advantage, but it's up to opposing candidates to be able to accommodate and to compensate for that advantage. And if you can't do that, if you can't come out with the right results, then you're probably not ready to take on the Democrats. We're confident, our team is confident that Howie and Angela are ready to take on the Democrats. And the Republicans. Boy, Howie wants to take it to Trump. I mean, every day he wants to take it to Trump. And as he says, they might not be ready to debate him and Angela. So, you have to look at the metrics. You have to look at the performance of the campaign. So I know that's not going to put this to rest to some of you because you really wanted another candidate, in one case who never was a candidate, and, some other people, and that's fine. That's cool. But people who are serious and who really have a serious viewpoint on elections for third party candidates are actually going to weigh out that evidence. And so, having a good campaign, that's not corruption. That's just kicking butt and taking names, okay? So just relax.
And just thinking about the fact that this team, these are folks who are not new to this, to running a campaign or to working campaigns. We've all done it. We're not new kids on the block with this. So, and the fact that, I'm just going to say it, the fact that folks have to take their time, their energy, and all of that and come and, you know, you're telling us how dope we are. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like,
Thank you.
what I love is the argument that, oh, that I had a Facebook post up like 3 years ago, 3 years ago, when this particular candidate was dangling the carrot over people's heads, and supposedly that's evidence that I rigged and this and that and the other. No. Let's put this on the table right now. That's not rigging. That's winning. That's being effective. That's called being an organizer. So that's what that is. And I'm sorry, but that's just the way it turned out. And anyway, before this primary happened, none of you knew who I was. So some of you say on one side of your mouth that candidate X was polling so high and we would get over 5%. So that, your point is that this particular candidate was super strong. Okay, great. There's no doubt of the qualities that particular candidate has on the table. That's great. But you can't have it both ways, folks. Me, this little person who you didn't even know existed 2-3 years ago, all of a sudden has an advantage over somebody with those assets. Come on, guys. That's all right. You do you. Let's go back to real questions, though.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Let's see. Angela, are you a wobbly?
I am not, but it is not off the table either. I have a whole lot of friends who are wobblies. It's something I've always thought about. I need to make sure, if that's something I want to do down the road, there's no conflicts with my allegiances to the Green Party. But yeah, I at the end of the day, I'm down with the wobblies. So, but I am not one.
I mean, you work in a right to work state.
Yes, I do.
And so, I mean, what's great about the wobblies, IWW, is that you actually can do some labor organizing even when labor or unions are not authorized in your state via the wobblies, right?
At this point in time, I need to eat. I am no use to anyone if I am houseless at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, hey, here's a great question. A wants to know, ooh, which is my favorite letter in the alphabet because I'm also an A, and so are you.
Yes.
But anyway, have you heard of the Amend the 13th movement? There's going to be a question on the ballot asking to ban slavery as punishment, i.e. prison labor, in some states like Nebraska and New Jersey.
Yes. And for anybody who's unfamiliar with A's question, that is an excellent question. If you've not watched Ava DuVernay's excellent documentary, 13th, you want to, for the simple fact that it explains the fact that the 13th Amendment, which nominally, officially ended chattel, ended the period of enslavement in the United States, there is a loophole in that amendment that allows people used as slave labor, basically, if they are incarcerated. And this is something that has been exploited. When we're talking about the new Jim Crow, this is what we're talking about, a major contributor to that, and also something that has given rise to the system of mass incarceration as we know it now. And so we absolutely support making an amendment to the 13th Amendment to close that loophole. so that you are not exploiting people who are incarcerated, using their labor, basically using people to turn the wheel. Because we both know, you have this loophole, and then you have privatized prisons. Then things that used to be misdemeanors are now felonies. People are being locked up for absolutely ridiculous sentences for things that do not warrant that, for the simple fact that they make money for this system. The whole thing is filth. And so we absolutely support amending the 13th Amendment and ending and closing that loophole so we can't misuse people that way anymore.
Yeah, one of the factoids that Howie pointed out in a couple of videos back is that it wasn't actually during a video, but that sometimes made in America labels are actually prison labor labels, right? And look, I mean, one of the things that we say on the left all the time is that there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. And basically what that means is that you can't, under capitalism, the worker that created the product that you're about to buy or that you need at that moment was exploited because they're not getting the full value of their labor, right? The profits, as we always say, profits are stolen wages. And, and under capitalism, workers can't, they don't have a democratic say in what happens with those profits. And that's why, you and Howie advocate for worker co-ops as one way to get to where we need to go, right? And so, there's one thing that people don't think about is that there are a lot of corporations that use prison labor to create their products. Companies like Starbucks, Victoria's Secret, yeah. Exactly. So, when we talk about exploitation, what greater exploitation is to have someone who's there because maybe they smoked a joint and got busted, making 50 cents an hour, if that, and the bra that you buy at Victoria's Secret, I don't even know how much do they go for, like 50.
I mean, it's not a part of my life.
Well, yeah. But I mean, think about it. Like, let's probably a $50 bra at Victoria's Secret,
yeah.
and they're paying this person 50 cents an hour. And yeah, we can talk about overhead and all those other costs and marketing and all those other costs. But there's a big difference between 50 cents and $50. And somebody's being exploited, and it's that person that's incarcerated that's being exploited. And so, we have to be honest with ourselves about what slavery actually looks like today. And given the preponderance of Black people in prison and brown people and indigenous people as well, and let's be honest, it's also white working class people that get caught up in this stuff, right? But we know what the numbers are. Well, those of us who are on the left, we know what the prison numbers look like. And so, should you stop buying things just because they possibly were, made by prison labor? In the Green Party, we advocate for easing our consumption. And so, at the very least, folks ought to stop and think about what it is they're buying. Do you really need it, or are you being motivated by consumerism, right? What do you say, Angela?
I agree with you. And because, you know me, but, it's something that I live personally. Like, I have a very minimalist lifestyle, which is why I'm echoing, because I don't have a bunch of stuff in my apartment. But part of that is, what do we need? How much waste are we generating? Which speaks to the eco-socialism piece and the biggest thing that I think the Green Party is known for. When you say Green Party, people, they think environment. And so if we are to be good stewards of the environment, that ties into making sure that we are watching what we're consuming and also being mindful of the people who are producing it. And also, what just came to the media about, people using animals to pick coconuts and things like that, and, exploiting the non-human life on this planet as well. Those things do, the things that we have access to as far as material things have a cost. And I think that it's a very Green Party thing. I think it's a very socialist thing. I think it's a very anarchist thing. All of us on the left, I think that it makes sense for us, that we're at the front of these discussions and talking about how we are watching our consumption and being mindful of who is producing what we're consuming.
Mhm. Yeah. Here's a good one. Paul D. Schreiber. If we can't get on all the state ballots, will voters be able to write in Howie's name? I can feel that one. So, the goal of this campaign is to get on all 50 states plus DC to get on the ballot, and we just talked about some wins, the ballot access wins that we've got going right now. I'll just repeat those. We're going to be on the ballot in Maryland. Their petitioning is always or almost over. We're going to, we've got the number in New Jersey. We've got the number in Alaska. Arkansas is nearly finished. And so, we're a significant investment that we make out of all the donations that we get for the campaign is to ballot access. However, write-ins are always part of the Green Party presidential candidate toolkit, always. And I remember in 2016, Jill Stein actually had to seek a write-in in North Carolina. In that time, they had some of the most onerous ballot access laws in the country. And so she did pursue a write-in campaign there. And so where we are not able to get on the ballot via petitioning or because we don't already have a ballot line, we are going to look at write-ins. I will tell you right now that write-ins are not available throughout the country. And in fact, there are a couple states in particular that don't have any provision for write-ins at all. And Nevada is one of those places. So, we will do the best that we can. And where we're able to, as a fallback position, if necessary, we will pursue a write-in status in some of those states. That's something that you have to affirmatively request and apply for. Some states you can actually just write in, but in most states, the candidate has to actually file a document before you can write them in. Otherwise, your vote, that line on your ballot, doesn't get counted. So, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm in Nevada and I want to write in Howie. Well, first of all, you're not going to be able to do that. Second of all, they just won't count any of your votes at all for president and vice president if you do that. So you have to be really, really clear about what those rules are in your state. And as the campaign goes on, we'll provide some more information about all that. All righty, let's see. Jason James asks, should the Green Party do more to directly and aggressively appeal to Bernie's base? The overlap in policy could draw many. What do you think, Angela?
Assertively appeal to them? Absolutely. I think, it's just my personal thing. I don't believe in walking around and being like, you're going to vote for. No. I think that, based on the policies that a lot of people who supported Bernie Sanders supported him for, the things that excited him, I think that, they'll find that here, especially since, this is where they came from. So, but I don't believe in being, I don't think being aggressive with folks. Just let them know, hey, y'all rode with, you rode with Sanders because of this, this, and this, and this. Biden is not offering you this, 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 or this. Has said that he will not support this, this, or this. This is what these folks over here are offering. I mean, where do you stand on that? And, I don't push people. I let them know, because for me, it's just logic. If you are offering, and I vote, if you are a candidate that is offering me what I want, and the two mainstream parties are not speaking to what I need, speaking to what my community needs, and I stand at the intersection of a couple of communities. I'm working class, I'm queer, and I'm Black. I'm also a cisgender woman. So those things matter. I got you, Jason. Aggressive isn't try hard. You knew what I meant, and I knew what you meant. But yeah, I'm a Capricorn. I'm really literal. But just thinking about who's offering real solutions to my communities. And why waste my vote on somebody who does not care about us, has proven because of who they represent that they're not going to give us what we want. And a lot of people think once this person's in there, we'll just push them. I'm just going to tell you, what incentive do they have to do what you want them to do once they're elected? This wasn't their platform. So what is their, and they've already said they're against it, what incentive do they have to actually give you what you want? And so I think in this election, and basically all elections, vote for what you want, and just letting folks know you supported Bernie Sanders because of certain things. This is what the Green Party's platform is. It's not included in the platform, it is the platform. So that's usually what I bring people.
Yeah, and what I'm really encouraged to is that the Sanders supporters that are coming over, the day that the senator decided to suspend his campaign. I mean, we just had a deluge of donations, deluge of volunteer signups. And what I saw and what I could see with the comments and things like that was that people got it, that they didn't have to surrender their hopes for Medicare for all, or for a full strength Green New Deal, or for economic recovery, or any of those things like that. They immediately got it that the Hawkins Walker 2020 campaign was all about those things and more, right? And it was instantly it was instant logic, and no regrets. It's just seeing donor comments and things like that. People just didn't regret the decision. It just made sense. And so it's really up to all of us to help get the word out and talk to fellow burners. We do have a lot of things that we resonate with Bernie Sanders supporters. Definitely environmental concerns, definitely economic concerns, definitely social justice concerns. And so you don't have to give up that fight, and this is the part where Howie always says, don't get lost in the sauce, right? And listen, I promise you, we're going to come out with a t-shirt that says, don't get lost in the sauce here pretty soon, because everybody loves that slogan, but he's exactly right, and what does he say? If you vote for Biden, they don't know, right? They don't know that you want Medicare for all or any of these other things like this, and they just assume that you just don't care about those things, but you do. Right? So
go for what you want.
Yes.
Go for what you want, and let people that you talk to who want what you want vote for what you want. It requires, and one thing I think people also need to understand, we are aware of the fact that there's a lot of really very justified fear of retaining the individual who is currently occupying the White House. I get that. This whole team gets that. Everybody on our left gets that. However, it's going to take a little bit of bravery to to stand up and say, this is what I believe in. This is what I want. This is what I want the world to look like going forward, and stand on that. So,
yeah, and I would just add as well, and you say this all the time, Angela, that you understand harm reduction, when it comes to votes. And you've got you've got people in your circles that, oh, I just can't do it. We got to get rid of Biden. And oh my God, I'm holding my nose. And or excuse me, we got to get rid of Trump. Pardon me. I have to hold my nose and vote for Biden because we just got to get rid of Trump. And that's important. That's an important feeling. And for me, I actually see that as a positive, because it shows that people are affirming what it is that we collectively need. And it's creating this kind of tug of war in there. And if they don't come with us today, that's okay. They'll come with us tomorrow. I don't advocate for people, getting into knockdown dragouts with folks who feel like they have to vote for Biden, right? I think you state your case and you have a principled discussion that's respectful, and remembering that you're speaking to a fellow human being, and you just kind of do what you need to do. One of the things that you learn in organizing is what I call qualifying the lead. And those of you who are in sales understand what I mean when I say that. And it's like, don't get into a tug of war with somebody who clearly is not your customer, right? If someone is not ready to come over because they have that fear, it's okay. There's like 50 other people that are, right? So have your conversations, because there is no substitute for person-to-person conversations about these things. That's why door knocking, and one of the old campaign adages is, they who knock on the most doors win, because having that face-to-face conversation with somebody is so powerful. But just remember, there's, some close to 50% of everybody in 2016 who was eligible to vote did not vote. And as Howie will always tell you, it's because, not because they're apathetic, it's because they're alienated. Try to find out who those people are. I'll give you a hint. Some of those people are, students. Some of those people are working class people, people of color, children of immigrants who are citizens, and maybe they're in communities that you don't know about. And so what it's going to, call for you to do is to kind of step outside of your circle a little bit, and look for those folks and build bridges with those folks with whom you have, a common interest, and we can do better. I mean, even if we got 25% of those people that didn't vote, we could win. That means that only 25% of all people, who voted actually voted for, well, Hillary Clinton. Remember, Hillary Clinton got 3 million more popular votes than Trump. So it's only 25% of all of the people who actually could vote. So, just think about it. You don't have to arm wrestle with people. Here's a good one. We like this question on this campaign. We appreciate this one. Alex Krauss again. Can y'all speak out on rights for trans people, since it has been such a contentious issue in the Green Party in the past few months?
Oh, absolutely. And I also want to link that to a question I saw in the chat about where we stand on reparations, and also where we stand on self-determination for Black people. Speaking for trans rights, I don't, if folks want to see the deeper dive that there's a couple of articles in our campaign updates specifically speaking to our stance on trans rights. Trans rights are human rights. As somebody who is on the LGBTQIA spectrum myself, my, trans siblings, we are aware of the fact that, particularly trans people of color are the victims of police brutality in this country at rates that, are extremely high, are at risk of being exploited as far as not being able to get work, not being able to get housing. And so standing up for our trans siblings this is what we do. We're family. And it is our, we need to take care of our own. And so if you want to read what we've written, as far as a campaign, head to Howie Hawkins, www.howiehawkins.us, our campaign website, and under campaign updates, there's deeper dives on where we stand with trans rights. But that's, for us, that's not a question. We don't do homophobia. We don't play ageism. We're not ableist. We are not racist. We are not misogynist. We are not fatphobic. None of those things fly here. And so standing up for our trans family that's a no-brainer. It's what we do.
Yeah.
And also, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. No, you.
No, I was just gonna mention what I saw in the chat about, is there a piece for, is there anything in our campaign that speaks directly to Black self-determination? Yes. Community control. When we're talking about community control of police, we're talking about community control of schools, we're talking about community control of healthcare, all of those things, and reparations, which, when we say reparations, we are talking about, and I don't have it in front of me. What is that? HR
40.
HR 40. Thank you. That legislation to have a committee that looks into what reparations for African Americans would look like, but also, while that is happening, making sure that we are legalizing drugs, releasing people who are currently harmed by the drug war, and giving them precedence in the legal cannabis industry, so that, we can start doing economic uplift of the communities that have been most harmed by mass incarceration, which of course are Black, brown, and indigenous. And when we're talking about community control, and black self-determination, you are determining what your community looks like. You're talking about what your community works like, who's over, who's having, how are y'all coming together to build the community that you want. So we absolutely do have that in the platform. And to link that to the question about reparations, yes, darling, reparations are on the ballot.
Yeah, reparations are on the ballot. I love that. But going back to the transgender point, there's been a real distortion and real smear about what Howie's position is as regards trans rights. And I have to tell you, I am a straight woman. I know many people who are transgender, and who have transitioned and would prefer to be known in a name that they're affirmatively choosing, right? And there's several cases in which I have somebody that I know who's been in transition, and I've known this person for a long time, and will trip up on their names. And I think those of us who are straight, if we're really honest with ourselves, can admit to being embarrassed about tripping up on the name. And I think that, and this is a value that the Howie shares absolutely. Trans rights are human rights. People deserve the identity that they are, and that shouldn't be in question. And we need to catch up, and we need to do better. I will say this issue with, the resolution that came out of the Georgia Green Party. Angela, I just want to say really how proud I am of you and Howie for, having a very respectful, principled discussion with the Georgia Green Party members. And they actually had some members on their candidate forum, who were observing the candidate forum, that actually weren't even from Georgia, and really had an aggressive posture. And I think the two of you handled it really, really gracefully, with respect. You were very clear about the fact that trans rights are human rights. You were clear about the fact that you wanted to continue dialogue, and this is the thing about being a Green, and being on the left. We can't do cancel culture anymore. We have to actually discuss these things. And I just got to tell you, I'm just really proud of the two of you, and the way that you showed up in that meeting. You didn't waffle, you didn't equivocate. You were very clear about what your position was, and you treated everybody present with respect. So, thank you very much for doing that.
I think that, it's just appropriate. And I think that for people, like you were saying earlier, I'm cisgender. And so I think that it's also, there's a level of, and the person who's talking about LGBTQIA, we're talking about human rights. If that offends you, take it easy. Like I said, you'll be okay. What was I saying? Just making sure that we are having dialogues, respectfully, as Andrea said, and also those of us who have cisgender privilege, making sure that we're speaking up in our own circles. And when we're hearing transphobic comments, and when we're watching people that we know and care about co-sign violence against transgender people and people, non-binary folks and folks on the spectrum, just make sure that we're speaking up. Make sure that we are using our, straight privilege, cisgender privilege to stand up also in our communities. I mean, it doesn't take, you don't have to make this giant statement to stand up for our trans family. It's things we also do within our communities.
Yeah, and our friend Matt is asking here too, kind of related to this. What about feminists who believe in sex-based rights? Can they coexist in our party? How do we balance rights when they come into conflict? Again, I am a straight cisgender woman. I'm a feminist. I've been a feminist since I was a little kid. And I do not feel that my rights as a woman, as a Latina, as a working class person, infringe or on the rights of transgender people or anybody else on the LGBTQIA spectrum, anybody with disabilities, any of those kinds of things, right? We need to stop thinking about human rights as a finite pie, and everybody's slice keeps getting smaller. It's not. Human rights are as boundless as human beings themselves. And so we need to stop accepting these limitations that come to us via patriarchy, via misogyny, via capitalism. Our rights are as boundless as we are as human beings. And so, and we also don't need to only see civil rights legislation as the only arbiter of our human rights. Orale. I mean, we're so much more than that. I think, Angela, you and I share a value as two women of color that, we are si se puede people. We are people who everything is possible, and we're not bound. We're not bound by somebody else's strictures. And so, I mean, maybe that's a cultural thing for us, but I don't find my rights as a straight woman as being in conflict with any human
Come
being.
on. That part right there. My cisness is not so precious that my trans sisters threaten it. Baby, there are as many ways to be a woman as there are women. If you choose to identify as, women. I know, I got a whole lot of folks who are non-binary people that I love too. But if you are someone who is AFAB, which is assigned female at birth, and you identify as a woman, however you do that, that's not threatened by our trans siblings. It's not. I mean, that these ideas of femininity, masculinity, to a degree, the way that we're doing these things is outdated. And we're not making space for people to just be who they are and choose to, how you choose or not to choose how you do your gender. And so basically, I'm just piggybacking with what Andrea said. My cisness is not so precious and so fragile that my trans sisters threaten it. So.
Yeah, cisness is also on a spectrum, right? I mean, you're more girly than I am, and I'm the one that
depends. I can butch it up, and I do it on purpose because I mean,
so it's like, there are expressions in our own gender, in this cisgender. I mean, it's all on a spectrum as well. Yes. So it's just kind of, but anyway, trans rights are human rights, right?
No question.
Women's rights are human rights.
No question.
And there's no limitation to either one of them. We are so much more than what the patriarchy and capitalism hand down to us.
Yes. Good.
Right on. Okay, Angela, it is 10 after the hour, and you got to be at work in the morning at the crack of dawn. So I want to just maybe take a couple minutes, say some final words, and let's wrap it up. Go for it.
We're gonna say what we always say. Yeah, I do. I butch it up all the time. But I just want folks to remember there's a pandemic happening. Those of us in the South are watching the numbers of COVID infections skyrocket. We're watching that. So I just want y'all to be safe. What we say to y'all every week, just be safe. Take care of each other. The stuff in the news is rough. There's a lot of really painful things happening. Take care of each other. Take care of the folks around you, as much as you can. And also take care of yourselves. You need a nap, take a nap. Do what you need to do to keep yourselves healthy, keep your spirits up, because this is a heck of a timeline right now. You're in Florida. I'm in South Carolina. We know what you're talking about. Solidarity. So let's just be mindful. Take care of each other. Wear your mask. Don't go in the store showing out because you gotta wear it. Just put the thing on and keep it pushing. And all of that. Mwah.